The Silent Witness. A psychology thriller novel. Chapter 1. The Night He Didn't Come Home. Elise Moore set the dining table with trembling hands, the clinking of silverware oddly loud in the stillness of the house. A white linen cloth stretched across the polished oak surface, flanked by 2 plates of rosemary chicken, his favorite. A soft jazz playlist hummed from the kitchen speaker, meant to give the night a warm, easy glow. It had been 10 years, a decade of marriage, a milestone worth celebrating. She glanced at the time again, 8:47 p.m. He was late. Ava sat on the living room floor, legs crossed in her pale blue pajamas, quietly coloring inside the thick pages of her sticker book. Her brow furrowed with focus, tongue poking slightly from the corner of her mouth as she filled in a purple unicorn with matching wings. Elise forced a smile. "You tired yet, sweet pea?" Ava shook her head without looking up. Her dark curls bounced gently with the motion. "Daddy should be home soon," Elise added, more to herself than to her daughter. He had said he'd be home by 7:30. Earlier, he'd even texted, "Don't wait for me if I'm late. Traffic's insane. But I'll be there, promise." That had been over an hour ago. She sat by the window, phone in hand, staring into the dark curve of their quiet suburban street. No headlights, no sound, just the drone of insects and the occasional rustle of branches outside. The cul-de-sac was as silent as a grave. When she finally dialed his number, it rang until voicemail picked up. His message, chirpy and upbeat, made her stomach twist. "Hey, you've reached Greg Moore. Can't talk now, but you know what to do." She hung up. Something wasn't right. Greg was many things, messy, impulsive, sometimes careless with dates, but he never forgot their anniversary. Not after the near disaster of year 2, when he'd booked a client dinner instead of their night out. After that, he made a point of remembering. Roses, cards, little things. She scrolled through her messages again. The last one from him at 6:12 p.m. "On my way soon. Got a surprise for you, don't peek in the garage. Love you." Elise stood abruptly. "Ava, honey, why don't you go upstairs and brush your teeth? Mommy needs to check something." The little girl paused, glanced up at her mother, then nodded. Quiet as ever, she stood and padded up the stairs, her small feet barely making a sound on the carpet. Elise walked toward the garage, flipping on the light. Empty. No car, no gift. Just their usual clutter, storage bins, lawn tools, and her unused treadmill mocking her from the corner. She stood there for a few seconds longer, breathing in the scent of motor oil and dust. A strange chill ran through her, like the static charge before a lightning strike, the kind of instinctive dread no amount of logic could wash away. Then came the sound. A soft click, barely audible. She turned her head, eyes narrowing. It had come from the backyard. She moved to the sliding glass doors, heart pounding. The porch light flickered on as the sensor caught her motion. At first, she saw nothing but the dark expanse of grass and the tall hedge that bordered their yard. Then her breath caught. Ava was outside, barefoot, alone, standing in the middle of the lawn, staring at the swing set. Her arms hung limp at her sides. "Ava!" Elise rushed to unlock the door, flinging it open. "What are you doing out here?" The girl didn't respond. "Ava!" She ran to her daughter, kneeling in front of her. The child's face was pale, her eyes wide but glassy, reflecting the dim porch light like a mirror. Her lips moved, just slightly, but no sound came out. Elise grabbed her shoulders gently. "What's wrong? Did you see something?" Nothing, just silence. The silence of a child who had seen something she wasn't meant to see. The police came 2 hours later. Elise had waited too long to call, she knew that. But she'd kept hoping the phone would ring, that Greg would walk in with a stupid grin and a bouquet of flowers and apologize for scaring her. Instead, she sat in the living room, answering the same questions again and again. "What time did your husband leave work? Did he seem agitated recently? Is there anyone who might want to harm him? Was your marriage stable?" She hated the way the officer looked at her when he asked that last one, not accusatory, just quietly skeptical, like he'd already made up his mind. Detective Lisa Armand was the only one who seemed to take Elise seriously. A woman in her late 40s with neat braids and sharp eyes, she spoke in clipped but not unkind tones. She spent extra time with Ava, crouching low to meet her eye level. "Sweetheart, can you tell me what you saw tonight?" she asked gently. Ava only blinked. Her small hand clutched a corner of her mother's sweater, knuckles white. "She's not normally like this," Elise said, voice cracking. "She talks all the time. She's happy." Detective Armand gave a soft nod. "It might be temporary. Trauma can present in strange ways. We'll have a child psychologist come in the morning." When the officers finally left at nearly 2 a.m., Elise curled up in Ava's bed, wrapping her arms tightly around her daughter. She could feel the tiny heartbeat against her chest, steady but too fast. She didn't sleep. Not really. She watched the shadows shift across the ceiling. She listened to every creak of the walls, every gust of wind outside. Somewhere, beneath the surface of her thoughts, a certainty had begun to root itself. Greg hadn't just disappeared. Something had taken him, and her daughter, her sweet silent daughter, had seen it happen. Chapter 2. The Girl Who Wouldn't Speak. The morning after Greg disappeared, the world outside Elise's window continued as if nothing had happened. Birds chirped, cars rolled past, a delivery van parked across the street to drop off a package at the neighbor's. Inside the Moore house, time had stopped. Elise sat at the kitchen table, a half-empty cup of coffee cooling in front of her. She hadn't changed clothes from the night before. Her eyes were bloodshot, lids heavy, but she hadn't slept. Not really. She couldn't. Ava sat across from her, legs swinging slightly under the chair, staring blankly at the untouched bowl of cereal in front of her. She hadn't said a word since Elise found her in the yard. No protest about brushing her hair, no complaints about the temperature of the milk. Not even a whisper. It was like someone had flipped a switch and turned her voice off. Elise tried not to let the panic show on her face. She gently pushed the bowl closer. "Honey," she said, voice soft, "you need to eat something, okay?" Ava's eyes flicked up to meet hers, just for a moment, then dropped back down. She toyed with the spoon but didn't lift it. The doorbell rang. Elise flinched, her pulse spiking. Ava turned her head toward the sound, her expression unreadable. Elise stood slowly and opened the front door to reveal Detective Lisa Armand, dressed in dark jeans and a black blouse beneath a fitted blazer. Her badge was clipped to her belt. Behind her stood a woman with a gentle smile and kind eyes, tall, lean, with graying hair tied back in a low ponytail. "Elise," Lisa said, "this is Dr. Nina Sato. She's the child psychologist I mentioned." Elise nodded quickly, stepping aside to let them in. "Thank you for coming so quickly." Dr. Sato smiled as she stepped into the living room. "Of course. Is Ava up?" "She's in the kitchen," Elise said. "She hasn't spoken since last night. Not one word." "That's not uncommon after traumatic events," Dr. Sato said gently. "Sometimes silence is the brain's way of protecting itself." Elise blinked back tears. "But she's never been quiet. She talks to herself in the bath. She sings at bedtime. This isn't her. I'll see what I can do. With your permission, I'd like to speak to her alone for a few minutes." Elise hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, I'll be right here if she needs me." Dr. Sato walked calmly into the kitchen. Elise watched from the hallway as the psychologist crouched down beside Ava's chair, her voice low and warm. "Hi, Ava. My name's Nina. I heard you're really good at coloring. Do you think you could show me one of your drawings?" Ava didn't respond, but Elise saw the slightest shift in her daughter's posture. A glance, a twitch of a finger. Progress. Lisa joined Elise in the hallway. "We're still working on phone rings and traffic cameras. So far, his car hasn't been found, and no one's reported any sightings." "Nothing?" Elise asked, disbelieving. "Not a single trace?" Lisa shook her head. "It's like he vanished into thin air." Elise's mind reeled. He wouldn't just leave, not without Ava, not without saying something. Is there any chance he was under stress, financial problems, an affair? Elise bristled. "We had issues, sure. What marriage doesn't? But he was a good father, and he had a surprise for me last night. He said not to peek in the garage." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "You looked?" "Of course I did. There was nothing there." The detective pulled out a small notepad. Have you checked his work email? Credit card activity? Any purchases you didn't recognize? Elise hesitated. No. I wouldn't know his password. Lisa nodded. We'll request access through the proper channels. In the meantime, if you remember anything at all, call me. A few minutes later, Dr. Sato returned from the kitchen. Elise rushed to her. Did she say anything? The psychologist gave her a kind, weary look. No words yet, but she did draw something. She held up a small sheet of paper torn from Ava's sketchpad. A dark crayon drawing covered most of the page. Elise recognized her daughter's messy, intense coloring style. Thick strokes, heavy pressure. The picture showed a stick figure standing under what looked like a tree beside a long rectangular object. A house was drawn to one side. The sky was filled with scribbles of black. But it was the eyes that froze Elise. The stick figure's eyes were drawn as huge black circles. Ominous. Watching. What? What does that mean? She whispered. Dr. Sato exhaled. It's hard to interpret. Children often draw symbols of fear through exaggeration. Dark skies, large eyes, separation from home. She may be trying to express something she saw, or something she felt. Elise's throat felt dry. Could someone have been in the yard? Lisa's gaze darkened. We'll pull the backyard footage next. The motion camera above the porch, does it record? Yes, but Greg usually downloads it manually to his laptop. Lisa made a note. We'll take the device for forensic review. As the professionals made their exit, Elise turned back toward Ava. The little girl was sitting in the same position, now staring at the drawing. Baby. Elise knelt next to her, her voice trembling. Please tell me what happened. Please. Ava reached out and wrapped her small hand around her mother's. Still no words. But her grip was tight, like she was trying to hold on, like she was trying to protect her. Chapter 3. The Missing Hours. By Sunday morning, the sun shone too brightly for how Elise felt. Its golden glow flooded the windows, ignorant of the growing darkness inside her chest. She sat at Greg's desk in the study, surrounded by the curated chaos of his life. Crumpled receipts, folders, a baseball signed by some long-retired player, and his sleek black laptop. Locked, of course. She pressed the power button. The login screen glowed back at her with indifferent silence. Password required. She tried his usual ones. Ava 2015. Number. Greg Elise 123. Number. Moore family number. After 5 attempts, a message popped up. Too many incorrect entries. Locked for 10 minutes. Elise leaned back in the leather chair, overwhelmed. Why had he password protected everything? They didn't have secrets. At least, she thought they didn't. The truth was gnawing at her now. Maybe she hadn't known him as well as she thought. Maybe his smile had become just another mask. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lisa Armand. Security footage recovered, coming by in an hour. Her pulse jumped. Maybe finally there would be something. A lead, a face, proof that she wasn't losing her mind. She got up and walked to the garage again, the same space she'd checked 3 times the night before. She hoped, irrationally, that something had changed, that maybe she had missed a clue. The air smelled faintly of oil and dust. A few of Greg's tools lay on the workbench. A red ribbon peeked out from under a small tarp on the shelf. Curious, she tugged it loose. It was wrapped around a small white box. Her heart stuttered. She pulled the box down carefully and opened the lid. Inside was a delicate gold necklace, simple, elegant. A single sapphire teardrop hung at its center. A tiny tag beneath it read, "To E, 10 years down, forever to go. Love, G." Her chest tightened as tears filled her eyes. He had remembered. He'd bought her a gift. He'd meant to come home, but he hadn't. The garage door creaked open behind her, making her jump. She turned. Lisa stepped in, holding a small black USB drive. "We pulled what we could," she said. The porch camera caught some movement around 8:41 p.m. Elise swallowed hard. "Did you see him?" Lisa hesitated. "Come inside. You'll want to sit." In the living room, Lisa inserted the drive into her tablet. Ava remained upstairs under the supervision of Elise's neighbor, Margaret, a sweet retired nurse who had offered to help. Lisa pressed play. The footage flickered to life. It was dark. The timestamp read 2039-2. A quiet night. Porch lights glowing. Elise leaned forward, holding her breath. At 2041-15, movement. A man, Greg, walked into frame from the side yard. He looked normal, calm. He opened the front door with his key and disappeared inside. "That's him," Elise whispered. "That's Greg." Lisa nodded. "Keep watching." The footage rolled on. 1 minute, 2, 5. At 2047-22, another figure appeared. A shadow at first, then clearer. A tall man, hooded, dressed in dark clothes, slipped silently along the hedge line. He moved slowly, methodically, toward the back of the house. Elise felt ice crawl across her skin. "Who is that?" she whispered. "We don't know," Lisa said. "No ID yet." No car was seen entering or leaving the street. The figure vanished into the shadows. The footage ended. "That's all it caught," Lisa said. Elise's mind whirled. But Greg went inside. Then that man, he followed. What about the backyard camera? Lisa shook her head. It was damaged. The motion sensor was intact, but the data was corrupted. Someone may have tampered with it. "So you're saying someone broke in after Greg got home?" "That's one theory. It could also mean Greg let someone in voluntarily. We don't have enough to say for sure." Elise clenched her fists. "That's not like him. He wouldn't let someone into our house with Ava here." Lisa sighed. "Then we have to consider the worst-case scenarios." "I don't need to be coddled," Elise said sharply. "Tell me the truth." Lisa looked her square in the eyes. "The truth is, Elise, your husband may have been targeted, or he may have had dealings that put him in danger. Affairs, debts, secrets." Elise's head swam. She thought of the necklace in the garage, the ribbon, the sweet note. That wasn't the act of a man about to disappear. Or was it a farewell gift? Her thoughts were interrupted by Ava's voice, muffled but clear. "Mommy!" Elise bolted up and raced to the stairs. Ava stood at the top, her eyes red-rimmed, clutching her stuffed bunny. "Ava," Elise whispered. The little girl stepped down slowly. Then she said something Elise wasn't ready to hear. "He told me not to scream." Chapter 4. The silence that followed Ava's words was a thunderclap inside Elise's chest. "He told me not to scream." The sentence echoed, chilling the room more than any winter wind could. Elise moved slowly, cautiously, as though any sudden movement might make her daughter retreat back into muteness. "Ava." She knelt at the bottom of the stairs. "Who told you that? Was it Daddy?" The little girl stopped halfway down. Her bunny dangled from one hand. Her lips pressed tightly together again, the way they had the night before, like she regretted saying anything. Lisa appeared behind Elise, her voice calm and low. "Let's give her space." But Elise shook her head. "Please, baby, you can tell Mommy. I promise you're safe now." Ava slowly resumed her descent. One step, another, until she stood in front of her mother. Her eyes flicked upward, glassy but alert. Elise reached for her gently. Ava didn't flinch. She leaned into the hug, burying her face into her mother's neck. Elise stroked her hair. "You're safe. Nothing's going to hurt you." Then, barely above a whisper, Ava said, "He had gloves." Elise froze. Lisa stepped forward. "Ava, do you remember anything else? Can you tell us what happened?" Ava didn't answer. Instead, she tugged Elise's hand and led her into the living room. She pointed to the coffee table and whispered, "Paper." Elise grabbed the sketchpad and crayons. Ava sat on the carpet, picked out a charcoal-colored crayon, and began to draw. This time, faster, more detailed than before. Elise and Lisa watched in tense silence. After a few minutes, Ava turned the drawing around. It showed the backyard swing set again, but now with more context. One small figure stood beneath the swing, herself. Another taller one stood near the edge of the hedge. That one had a dark hooded shape and long black gloves. Behind them, a third figure lay flat, arms sprawled, a red line beneath the head. Greg. Elise felt the blood drain from her face. Is that Daddy?" Ava nodded. Elise choked back a sob. Why didn't you say something last night? He said if I screamed, he'd take me too, Ava whispered. Lisa crouched beside her. Ava, did you see his face? Did he talk to you? Ava looked down. Just his eyes. Can you draw them? Ava nodded. She flipped to a new page and began sketching two large oval eyes, cold and wide with heavy brows and no pupils. Just black voids. They reminded Elise of the eyes in her dream last night. Lisa stood slowly and stepped aside to make a phone call. Elise clutched Ava tightly, as if her arms alone could shield her from the man in the drawing. Sweetheart, Elise murmured, you did so good. I'm so proud of you. Ava whispered something into her ear. Elise's eyes widened. What did she say? Lisa asked, returning to the room. Elise looked up. She said he smelled like smoke, and something sweet. Like candy. Burnt candy. Lisa's face turned grim. We're going to run a trace through known offenders. Arson records, kidnappings, any criminal who fits that M.O. Elise nodded slowly, staring at the crayon eyes. Her husband hadn't just disappeared. He'd been murdered, and her daughter had watched it happen. That afternoon, Lisa arranged for Elise and Ava to stay in a nearby safe house, an empty guest cottage owned by a former police officer. The house was modest but secure, with reinforced doors, a camera at the front porch, and a back exit leading into dense trees. Elise didn't argue. Even with no formal charges, she felt the presence pressing in. The shadowy man with gloved hands and dead eyes could still be watching, could still be close. She packed only essentials, clothes, documents, Ava's bunny, and the drawings. Lisa insisted on keeping a copy of each. You said he smelled like smoke, she asked again before they left. Yes, why? We've had 2 other disappearances in the last year, both in quiet neighborhoods, both with the same detail mentioned in passing. A sweet, smoky smell. One of the victims was found weeks later, burned. The other was never found. Elise's stomach twisted. You think it's a serial offender? Lisa didn't answer directly. We're treating this like a high-risk case now. And until we know more, I don't want you in that house. As Elise buckled Ava into the back seat of the cruiser that would take them to the safe house, she looked back at the place that had once been home, and felt for the first time like she might never return. Chapter 5: Ashes and Almonds. The safe house smelled like lemon cleaner and old pine wood. It was tucked between rows of leafless trees on the outskirts of town, just close enough for a fast police response, but far enough to disappear into the background. Elise moved through the space mechanically, checking locks, drawing curtains, pacing from room to room like a caged animal. The cottage was neat, 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, and a living room with a flickering fireplace she didn't dare light. Ava was tucked into the smaller bedroom, her bunny clutched tight under one arm, drawings scattered on the nightstand like breadcrumbs left behind from a nightmare. Elise couldn't sleep, not even with 2 patrol officers stationed outside in an unmarked car. Instead, she sat in the living room with her laptop on her knees. Greg's unopened emails mirrored in her mind, still locked, still out of reach. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Did you get the gift? She froze, her heart slammed once, twice, then stalled. Her fingers hovered over the screen. Elise. Who is this? No reply. She stared at the message, bile rising in her throat. The gift. The necklace. Had someone been watching her? Had they been inside the house? Her instincts screamed to call Lisa, but something held her back. What if this was bait? What if calling attention to it put Ava at risk? She copied the message and forwarded it to Lisa anyway, without adding anything else. Then, without hesitating, she went to the coat closet and pulled out Greg's old lockbox, the one she had kept out of habit more than need. She hadn't opened it in years. The small silver key still hung from the zipper of her old handbag. Inside were the things Greg didn't want cluttering his desk: business cards, old documents, receipts, and a flash drive. It was unlabeled. Elise stared at it. She plugged it into the laptop. A single folder appeared. Sundown. She clicked it. Inside were PDFs, dozens of them, invoices, legal contracts, email screenshots, and a folder labeled Contractor Harlan Glass. Elise opened it. The name meant nothing to her until she saw the first line of a PDF contract: private consultation and containment services. Client, Gregory Moore. Subject, Elise Moore. Her breath caught. She kept reading. The contract described private surveillance, routine check-ins, behavior reports. It described her, her schedule, her online activity, her therapy records from 2 years ago, and her diagnosis: anxiety disorder, paranoia tendencies. Greg had hired someone to monitor her. No, control her. She scrolled faster, hands trembling. Buried among the documents was a photo, grainy, black and white. It showed Elise sitting in a cafe, reading a book, unaware she was being watched. The timestamp was from 8 months ago. She felt sick. Ava stirred behind the wall. Elise slammed the laptop shut and held herself upright until the nausea passed. Her husband hadn't just lied to her. He'd turned her life into an experiment. And now he was gone. And someone, possibly the same someone he'd hired, was still watching. The next morning, Lisa arrived at the cottage, looking pale and tense. Elise didn't bother with greetings. She led her straight to the laptop and pulled up the folder. Lisa scrolled in silence. Then, "We know that name. Harlan Glass. He's not licensed, not anymore." "You think he's involved?" Lisa didn't answer at first. "He used to work military private contracts, discreet surveillance. He's been on our radar ever since a whistleblower leaked his connections to blackmail ops for corporate clients. He vanished 2 years ago. Rumor was he moved into underground work." Elise whispered, "Greg hired him to follow me." Lisa nodded slowly. "And it looks like it backfired." Then she handed Elise a file folder of her own. "We ran Ava's drawing through our pattern recognition database. There's something." Elise flipped it open. There, printed in black and white, was a still frame from a gas station camera in Missouri, 6 months ago. A man buying cigarettes and a candy bar. His eyes caught the camera briefly. The same large, dark voids. The caption read, "Unidentified male. Suspected in 3 open arson cases. Code name, Ashman Lisa," pointed to the blurry image. "Your daughter's description, smelled like smoke and candy, is nearly identical to the 2 surviving victim statements from the last year." "A serial offender," Elise said, barely hearing her own voice. Lisa nodded. "And we believe your husband crossed paths with him. Whether by accident or design, we don't know yet. But Greg was playing with fire." Elise's hand tightened around the folder. "Then I want to help burn him down." Chapter 6: Smoke Trails. The next day began with the smell of ash. Not real smoke, but the phantom scent lingered in Elise's nostrils like a memory she couldn't wash off. She woke before dawn, tangled in the thin blankets of the safe-house bed, heart racing from a dream she couldn't fully recall. A shadow, a voice whispering from the woods, Ava's scream caught behind glass. She found her daughter curled beside her, bunny crushed to her chest, hair plastered to her forehead in sweat. She looked peaceful, on the surface, but Elise knew better now. Everything looked peaceful right before it broke. She quietly slipped out of bed and into the kitchen. Coffee. It would anchor her to something real. As the machine sputtered to life, her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time it was a photo. No text, no caption, just a shot of Ava's school ID badge, laying in the dirt beside what looked like tire tracks. Elise's breath caught. Her hands shook. The ID was real. It had gone missing 2 weeks ago. They thought Ava had simply dropped it on the way home from school. Greg even said he'd get a replacement. But now, this. She forwarded the image to Lisa immediately with one word: threat. Not 5 minutes passed before Lisa called. "Where are you?" "In the kitchen. Officers are en route. Don't open the door for anyone. And keep Ava inside, no matter what." Was it glass? We don't know yet. The metadata from the photo was scrubbed. But this wasn't random, Elise. Someone wants you to feel watched. "Well, it's working." Lisa paused. "There's more. We found something else in Greg's files." "What now?" "A bank account in Malaysia, under a false name. Large wire transfers. Someone was paying him off. Or he was paying someone else to disappear." Elise frowned. Disappear or silence? Lisa didn't answer, but the silence was enough. By mid-morning, 2 officers arrived to do a full sweep of the property. Ava clung to Elise's side as they moved room to room. At one point, one of the officers paused outside the front porch and knelt by the flower bed. "Mom," he called, "you may want to see this." Elise stepped outside and squinted. Beneath the loose soil, half buried in the dirt, was a single black glove. It wasn't Greg's. Elise knelt beside it and noticed something inside the glove, just at the seam. She used a pen to flip it over. A red candy wrapper, folded neatly, tucked inside like a calling card. Her stomach twisted. She staggered backward, eyes wide. "Get Ava inside," she whispered. "Now." Later that afternoon, Lisa returned with an evidence bag and a printout. "You were right," she said. "The glove has traces of sugar and butane. Same mixture found at a previous arson scene, last year in Illinois. That wrapper, it's a limited edition, sold only at a handful of boutique stores in the US. Elise exhaled slowly, her hands clenched. "He's taunting us." "Yes. And escalating." Lisa handed over a document. "We pulled more from the flash drive. This one, it's different. It's not about you. It's about someone named Claire Dunn." Elise scanned the file. Surveillance photos, notes, summaries. But something about the photos stopped her. One of them looked exactly like the woman Greg had once introduced as an old college friend. Blonde, sharp cheekbones, smiling too brightly. "I met her," Elise whispered, "years ago, briefly. He said she was just a friend." "She was more than that," Lisa replied. "She filed a police report against him 7 years ago, claimed stalking, threats. Then she dropped the charges." Elise's chest went cold. "You think he hurt her?" Lisa shook her head. "We're not sure what happened. She disappeared 2 months later. And no one followed up. She wasn't reported missing. She didn't have family. It slipped through the cracks." Elise looked down at the documents again, feeling her skin prickle. The lines were blurring. Greg wasn't who she thought, and maybe she wasn't the only one who had paid the price. But what terrified her most was the thought that Ava had been caught in the crossfire of something much darker. "What do we do now?" she asked. Lisa's voice was steady. "We follow the smoke." That night, Elise lay awake with Ava curled beside her. The safe house felt smaller now, the woods outside thicker, the air colder. She kept thinking about the photo, the ID badge, the glove, the candy, and the man with black eyes who had stood in her backyard. She didn't know how this would end, but she knew one thing: he wasn't done with them. Not yet. Chapter 7. The Eyes in the Woods. The storm rolled in just after midnight. Thunder cracked like bones splitting in the sky, and rain pelted the windows of the safe house with a fury that made every shadow twitch. Elise sat upright in bed, her body tense, senses on edge. Ava stirred beside her but didn't wake. Elise didn't know what woke her until she heard it again. A soft, deliberate knock, not on the front door, on the back one, the one that led out into the woods. She reached instinctively for the baseball bat she'd wedged beside the bed that morning. A ridiculous weapon, maybe, but it gave her just enough courage to creep toward the sound. Another knock, slower this time. She tiptoed to the back window and pulled the curtain aside by an inch. Nothing, just the outline of trees swaying in the wind, leaves thrashing like angry hands. But there, right at the edge of the tree line, a shape, a figure standing perfectly still. No umbrella, no flashlight, just stillness. Watching. Her breath caught. She didn't see his face, but she didn't need to. It was him. Elise stepped back, heart slamming against her ribs. She moved quickly, quietly, to Ava's room and locked the door behind her. She dialed Lisa, straight to voicemail. She tried again. Still nothing. The storm must have knocked out the tower. Panic scraped at the edges of her control. She flipped open the emergency phone Lisa had given her, a prepaid satellite device meant only for critical contact. She dialed. A voice picked up immediately. Safe house response. "Go, this is Elise Moore. He's here, outside, the woods. We're dispatching officers now. Stay locked in. Do not engage." She hung up, clutching the bat with one hand and holding Ava close with the other. The little girl stirred. "Mummy," she whispered, half asleep. "It's okay, baby," Elise murmured. "Just stay with me. We're safe in here." But she didn't believe it. Not when she heard the soft creak of wood. The back porch. He was moving, circling. She sat in the corner of the room, staring at the door, listening. One floorboard groaned, two, then silence. Ava's hand slid into hers, shaking. Then the unmistakable sound of a camera shutter snapped through the rain. Click, click, click. He was taking pictures. Outside her window, Elise's rage overtook her fear. She stood abruptly and moved toward the small dresser under the window. She shoved it upward, knocking over the lamp. The light flickered, then came back, and with it, a voice. Not from outside, from inside the house. A man's voice, whispering through the hallway vent. "Tell her I'll be back. She still owes me a scream." Elise froze. Her entire body went numb. He was inside. Somehow, some way, he'd gotten in. She didn't stop to think. She grabbed Ava, the bat, and the satellite phone and bolted for the bathroom, the only room with no windows. She locked the door, pushed the towels and laundry bin against it, and pressed herself and her daughter into the corner. The phone shook in her hand as she redialed. "Officers are 4 minutes out," the voice on the line said. "We don't have 4 minutes," Elise hissed. Outside the bathroom, the hallway creaked again. She held Ava close, murmuring reassurances even as her mind screamed. Then silence, complete silence. No footsteps, no whispers, no knocks. A moment later, red and blue lights flared through the blinds of the front window, pounding fists. "Police!" Elise unlocked the door, stumbled out with Ava, and pointed toward the back hallway. Officers swept the house, weapons drawn. They found nothing, no broken windows, no forced entry. No trace of the intruder, only one thing remained. On the floor by the back door, placed neatly like a forgotten toy, a voice recorder. Lisa arrived 10 minutes later, soaked from the rain. She played the tape. One sentence, just one. "Don't forget what I gave you, Elise. I watched you before. I'm watching now. And next time, I take something back." Chapter 8. The Cabin in the Pines. The storm passed with the dawn, but in its place came a new kind of silence, thick, grim, and unnatural. The kind that made every creak of wood feel like a warning. Lisa stood in the living room of the safe house, arms crossed tightly over her chest, eyes fixed on the small voice recorder sitting in the evidence bag. A steaming mug of untouched coffee sat nearby, forgotten. "He was inside," Elise said again, pacing. "I don't care what the officers say. He didn't break in because he didn't have to. He had a key, or a code, or someone gave him access." Lisa didn't argue. Instead, she finally said, "I believe you." That surprised Elise. Lisa continued, "The safe house's lock system logs entries digitally. At 12:41 a.m., the front door was unlocked using an emergency override code. Only 3 people know that code: me, the officer in charge of your relocation, and Greg." Elise stopped pacing. "Greg's dead." "Maybe," Lisa said carefully, "or maybe someone else had access to his old credentials. Either way, this wasn't just some predator lurking in the woods. This was planned." Elise sat down heavily. "He left the recorder like a trophy." Lisa nodded. "And he left a message." They listened to it again, over and over. "Don't forget what I gave you, Elise. I watched you before, I'm watching now, and next time, I take something back." "What I gave you," Elise repeated. "What does that even mean?" Lisa didn't answer right away. Then she said, "There's something you need to see." She opened her bag and pulled out a folder labeled Red Pines Cabin. This cabin was purchased by Greg 6 months ago, under a shell company, completely off the grid. No utilities, no digital footprint. He used a P.O. box for the paperwork. She laid out the photos. A rustic wooden cabin deep in the forest. Overgrown trails, a fire pit, a steel door padlocked from the outside. "I think that's where he met Harlan Glass," Lisa said, "or where he stored whatever secrets he didn't want you to find." Elise stared at the image. "You think that's where it all started?" "I think it's where we'll find answers." They left before noon, Lisa, Elise, and 2 officers in plain clothes. Ava was taken to a secured family shelter under police watch, much to Elise's distress. But she knew it was safer. Safer than dragging her into whatever waited inside that cabin. The drive took 2 hours into the highlands north of town. Forests thickened, roads narrowed. Cell signals faded. Lisa parked on a gravel path just outside a rusted chain-link gate. This is it. Elise stepped out of the car and was hit by a blast of pine-scented air and wet soil. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. The group walked in silence, flashlights in hand despite the daylight. After 15 minutes, the cabin came into view. It looked abandoned. The wood was faded. Moss crept up the base. The front steps sagged in the middle. Lisa moved to the door. The padlock was broken, freshly snapped. Someone had already been here. The team raised their weapons. Lisa motioned for Elise to stay behind. Elise waited, 10 seconds, 30, a minute. Then Lisa's voice called out, "Clear." Elise stepped inside. The air was thick, stale, and cold. The cabin had no power, but sunlight poured through the windows. Inside, it looked like a bunker. Metal filing cabinets, a dusty cot, a generator, a wall of photos. Elise stepped closer. Her breath hitched. The photos were of her, walking Ava to school, grocery shopping, sitting in their yard, even asleep in her bed. Hundreds of pictures, and handwritten notes under each one. Subject shows minimal risk, high emotional attachment to child, unstable at times, potential leverage point. Another read, client becoming erratic, threatened to terminate contract early, recommend clean exit. Elise felt sick. Greg had hired Glass to watch her, then tried to cut ties, and Glass had retaliated. Lisa pulled open one of the drawers and removed a file. Found something. Inside were more photos of other women. One Elise didn't recognize, another she did. Claire Dunn. Her face stared back, expression neutral, unaware of the camera. "She was here," Lisa said. "He used this place to isolate victims, track them, record them." Elise found a notebook on the desk. Inside, one page had a different handwriting style, jagged, aggressive. "She thinks I can't touch her. But I already have. I always do. I take the quiet ones, I silence the loud ones. I am the scream in the dark." Elise closed the book. This wasn't just stalking, this was hunting. Outside, the sky had turned grey again, clouds pressed low against the trees. As Elise stepped back into the clearing, her phone buzzed with one lone bar of signal. A text appeared. "Unknown number. You're too late. The game's already begun." Attached was an image, a shot of Ava, standing at the window of the family shelter, taken from outside. Elise screamed. Chapter 9. Nowhere is safe. The scream still echoed in Elise's ears as the photo burned into her phone screen. Avenue at the window, in the shelter where she was supposed to be safest. "I need to call them," she said, her voice shaking. Lisa was already dialing. "I'm getting the family shelter supervisor now. We need confirmation, right now." Elise paced in circles outside the cabin, adrenaline surging through her veins, hands trembling so hard she nearly dropped her phone. Every tree now looked like a hiding place. Every rustle, a step. Every shadow, a threat. Lisa spoke quickly into the phone, then lowered it with a pale face. "She's fine," Lisa said. "Still inside, still safe. They checked every angle, no intruder on the property." "Then how the hell did he take that photo?" Elise snapped. Lisa was already thinking. "He's using a long lens, probably from the tree line. He didn't break in, he just got close enough to scare you. He knew we'd be here. He wanted you to see this, Elise. He wanted me to panic. He wants control." Elise's hands curled into fists. "Then he underestimates me." Lisa's phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen. Forensics just confirmed fingerprints on the notebook back inside the cabin. They match a known alias, Thomas Harlan Glass, former military reconnaissance, trained in psychological warfare, disappeared from federal custody 3 years ago. Elise stared. He was in custody. Briefly, escaped in transport, covered his tracks well enough that the feds put the file on hold. Until now. "You think he's escalating because Greg backed out of their deal?" Lisa nodded. "Or because Greg tried to expose him?" They walked back into the cabin, where Elise went straight to the wall of photos. She traced her finger along the edge of one in particular, one she remembered the day from. It was fall. She was walking Ava to school, holding her hand, laughing about something. There was no reason anyone should have been watching them. But he had been, the whole time. She turned. How do we find him before he gets to her? Lisa took a deep breath. We set a trap. Back in town, Elise insisted on going to the shelter. She needed to see Ava with her own eyes, feel her warmth, hold her hand. When she walked through the secured entry and into the playroom, Ava was sitting at a table drawing, her bunny beside her, crayons scattered in a colorful mess. "Mommy," she called out, standing up so fast her chair tipped. Elise dropped to her knees, arms open. Ava ran into her hug, and for a moment nothing else mattered. But then Elise looked out the nearby window, the same one from the photo, and noticed something strange. A glint, just for a second. She stood walking to it. The building backed up against a wooded hill. Beyond the chain-link fence and thick brush, a small rise of rocks provided a perfect elevated vantage point. Perfect for watching. She pointed. He was there. Ava followed her gaze and tugged Elise's shirt. "He watched from the trees," she whispered. Elise knelt. "Did you see him?" Ava hesitated. "I saw a light. A red dot. It blinked." Elise's heart dropped. A laser sight? Lisa, who had followed behind, pulled out her phone and made a quick call to reposition the shelter's cameras and send a unit to scout the hill. "We need to move her again," Elise said. "Somewhere he can't track. Somewhere completely off-grid." "No," Lisa said firmly. "That's what he wants. He wants to isolate you, make you panic. If we run, we lose our advantage." "Then what do we do?" "We bait him." Elise's eyes narrowed. "With me?" "With both of you," Lisa said, "but under strict control. We give him a window, we plant false information, and we let him believe he's in control. I won't put Ava at risk. You won't, she won't be in the open, but you'll make him think she is." Elise stared at her daughter, who was now humming softly and coloring with calm determination. So innocent, so unaware of the man who had turned her childhood into a war zone. Then she looked at Lisa. "What do you need me to do?" Later that night, back at the secure station, Lisa laid out the plan. They'd use Elise to post a carefully timed update, social media made to look like she was taking Ava to stay with a distant relative in a known city. Meanwhile, Ava would remain at a hidden safe house under 24-hour watch, and Elise would make herself visible. "Visible how?" she asked. "We have footage of you from earlier this year, shopping with Ava," Lisa said. "We'll splice in new background noise, make it sound current. You'll post it with a caption about starting over, about being done hiding." "He'll come for me." Lisa nodded. "That's the point." Elise clenched her jaw. "Then let's give him something to find." Outside, in the darkened streets, a man stood on the opposite sidewalk across from the station. He wore a hooded coat. Chapter 10. The Trap. The post went live at exactly 8 p.m. Elise sat in a dimly lit hotel room with a burner phone in hand, staring at the screen. Her carefully worded caption hovered above an old video clip of her and Ava at a weekend market, smiling, eating ice cream, laughing. In the background, digitally altered landmarks placed them in a town 2 hours south. "Starting over, tired of looking over my shoulder. Ava deserves a life, not a hiding place." It was bait, and she knew it, but it still made her chest ache. Lisa stood by the window, watching the parking lot outside. "The moment he reacts, we'll track it. Don't look at the post again, just wait." Elise locked the screen and set it down. "What if it doesn't work?" Lisa didn't look away from the window. "He's obsessed. He won't ignore this, but we don't just want to lure him, we want to trap him. We don't even know how he keeps finding us." Lisa turned. "We do now." She held up a small tracker, no bigger than a thumbtack. "We found this sewn into Ava's stuffed bunny." Elise's stomach dropped. "What?" "He planted it at some point before Greg's disappearance, probably during one of the surveillance phases. It's how he knew every move you made, the safe house, the shelter. He was always one step ahead." Elise closed her eyes, grief and fury twisting inside her. "And now? Now we use it against him." Lisa explained the plan again. The signal from the tracker would remain active, but it had been transferred to a decoy. A duffel bag filled with weighted clothes, a doll, and items meant to mimic Ava's presence, including her voice on a looped recording. The decoy would be placed in an apartment across town where Elise would appear briefly before slipping away under police escort. "He'll come to that apartment?" Elise asked. "We're counting on it." Elise nodded slowly. "Then let's end this." The trap was set just before midnight. The decoy apartment was plain, sparsely furnished, with a clear view from a van stationed across the street. Inside the van, Lisa and a SWAT team watched every movement through live feeds. Cameras had been hidden in smoke detectors, lamps, even the front door peephole. Elise entered the building with a hood over her head, ducked into the apartment, then slipped out through the back stairwell, gone within 2 minutes. The lights inside remained on. The trap was live. Time crawled. Hour 1 passed, then 2. The team waited in silence, tension coiling tighter with every passing minute. Then, at 3:26 a.m., movement. A shadow slipped into frame on the rooftop camera. He moved like smoke. Deliberate, calm, wearing black from head to toe, gloves, mask, backpack. He didn't approach the front door. He scaled the fire escape. Camera 3 caught him on the balcony. Camera 4, inside the hallway, caught him slipping a gloved wire between the sliding doors. Silent entry. He crept into the apartment. The looped audio of Ava's voice. "Mommy, can I have milk?" played from the duffel bag. He paused, then opened it. Silence. The moment stretched. Then, "Now," Lisa barked. The door burst open. Flashlights flared. "Hands in the air, down on the ground." The man spun, fast but not fast enough. 2 officers tackled him to the floor. He didn't scream, didn't fight, just smiled. Even as they cuffed him, he whispered, "She screamed once, she'll scream again." Elise watched it all unfold from the nearby surveillance van. The moment they confirmed the arrest, she collapsed into Lisa's arms, shaking, crying, and finally, breathing. It was over. But in her heart, she knew survival wasn't the end of the story. Now came the hardest part. Putting it back together. Chapter 11. The face behind the mask. The man they arrested that night was calm, too calm. He gave no name, refused to answer questions, and stared through the two-way mirror during his entire intake like he already knew what would happen next. Lisa stood with Elise outside the interrogation room, watching him sit at the steel table, hands cuffed, posture relaxed, like he was the one observing them. "He hasn't spoken a word since we brought him in," Lisa said. "Won't eat, won't blink, just watches." Elise shivered. "That's what he does. He watches." Fingerprint scans confirm he's Harlan Glass, born Thomas Ray Whitmore, former contractor, dishonorably discharged, escaped custody 3 years ago during a psychiatric transfer. He's a ghost. "Until now," Lisa nodded. "Now we have him, but we don't have the full story. We need him to talk, and that's where you come in." Elise blinked. "What?" "He's not reacting to any of our agents, but he reacts to you. He watches you." "Number no way. I'm not stepping in there with him." "You won't be alone," Lisa said calmly. "We'll be right on the other side. One word and we pull you out. But Elise, this man hunted you and your daughter for months. If we want to know why, if we want to make sure he never does it again, we need to understand him." Elise's hands trembled at her sides. Then she looked into the interrogation room, at the man who had shattered her life and nearly stolen her child, and said, "Open the door." Inside the room, the air felt heavier. The man, Glass, Whitmore, whoever he truly was, looked up the moment she entered. His smile was slight, unreadable, but his eyes lit up like he'd been waiting for her. Elise sat across from him, heart pounding. Neither spoke for a long moment, then he leaned forward. "You look tired." She said nothing. He tilted his head. "You shouldn't be. You won. That's what this is, right? The big victory, the monster in chains." Elise's jaw tightened. "You terrorized my family." "I watched," he said simply. "That's what I do. I study, I find the cracks." "And you, Elise Moore, are made of cracks." She didn't flinch. "Why us?" He gave a soft, amused breath. It wasn't personal, at first. Elise leaned forward, but it became personal. You were supposed to be simple. A job, a profile. Greg hired me to monitor your instability. Said you were breaking. Said you were dangerous, to Ava, to him. He wanted proof. Evidence for a custody claim, I assume. Elise's throat went dry. He lied to you. Glass's eyes sparkled. Of course he did, but that's not what interested me. You did. She stared at him. Why? Because you noticed me. His voice dropped to a near whisper. You looked into shadows that others ignore. You felt the danger. And yet, you stayed still. You played the game. You made me curious. So I stayed. Long after the contract ended. He smiled again, eerie and slow. Greg tried to cut ties, but he made a mistake. What mistake? He underestimated what I'd learned, what I could do, what I'd become. Elise clenched her fists beneath the table. You're not a ghost. You're a coward, hiding behind cameras, behind children. Glass leaned back. You screamed once. I never screamed. He grinned, not out loud. The air between them crackled. Then a knock at the door signaled the end of the session. Lisa opened it. That's enough. Elise stood slowly. Glass said nothing else, but as she left the room, she felt it. The shift, the power she had taken back. Outside, Lisa met her with a quiet nod. You okay? Elise nodded, voice steady. He thinks he won because he scared me. But I'm still here. Ava's still safe. And now he's locked in a box. Lisa offered a rare smile, and he's never getting out again. Elise exhaled deeply, finally letting the tension fall from her shoulders. But as she walked through the station, something caught her eye on the evidence board. A new photo, a burned cabin, a handwritten note found in the ashes. She was only one chapter. The book isn't finished yet. Elise felt her stomach drop. Lisa noticed. We found that message at another site, far north, months ago. We didn't know it was connected. Elise's voice was low. He's part of something bigger. Lisa nodded. We think there's a network. Copycats. Others like him. Elise's spine stiffened. Then we stop them, one by one. Chapter 12. Echoes in the dark. Elise didn't sleep that night. Even knowing Harlan Glass, Thomas Whitmore, was locked up in a reinforced federal holding cell, she couldn't stop the hum of dread beneath her skin. She lay in bed at Lisa's secured guest unit, staring at the ceiling as the seconds ticked by in stifling silence. Her mind kept returning to one thing. She was only one chapter. The book isn't finished yet. If Glass was just one page in a larger story, who were the others? At 7 a.m., Lisa arrived with black coffee and a stack of fresh files. Intel came through last night, she said, sliding the top folder toward Elise. We've been connecting the dots. Inside were pages of photographs, blurry images of other women, men, children, surveillance logs, and map pins that spanned the entire East Coast. Elise scanned them, heart sinking. These are all his victims, she whispered. Lisa shook her head. Not just his. We believe he was part of a loose network, a shared system of contract surveillance operatives who blurred the line between watchers and predators. Glass wasn't the only one with Greg's files. He traded information, sold access. Elise's stomach churned. You're telling me people paid to watch families? Lisa nodded grimly. Some for leverage, some for control, some for darker reasons. She flipped to the final page of the file. A single name. The Echo Project. Glass referred to it once in a recorded phone call. It's not a formal group, more like a black market exchange. Coders, hackers, private security freelancers. They operate in shadows. Some cases have gone cold for years. Missing persons, stalker cases, harassment with no traceable link. Elise traced the project name with her finger. Then it's not over. No, Lisa said, but this time we're ahead. She slid another sheet of paper across the table. This is from Greg's flash drive, a list of access keys, digital credentials tied to private servers. We believe he was preparing to leak them, possibly to expose Glass and others like him, That's likely why he was killed. Elise's jaw clenched. He wanted redemption. Lisa gave her a look, half pity, half respect. He was too late. Later that afternoon, Elise visited Ava in the new secure facility outside the city. Unlike the sterile shelter before, this one was built with comfort in mind. A converted farmhouse with a large garden, bookshelves, and warm lighting. Ava ran to her the moment she walked in, arms outstretched. "Mummy!" Elise swept her up into a hug, burying her face in her daughter's shoulder. "Hi, baby, I missed you." "I drew you something," Ava said, pulling back and reaching into her little notebook. She handed her a page filled with swirls of bright colors, flowers, and stick figures holding hands. Elise blinked back tears. "There's no black this time," Ava said softly. Elise nodded, voice trembling. "No black, baby. You're safe now." But as she hugged her daughter again, Elise's eyes drifted to the windows. She knew that safety was temporary. There were still others out there, watching, waiting, and if the Echo Project thought they had silenced her, they hadn't heard her scream yet. Chapter 13. Threads in the Web. 2 days later, Elise found herself sitting across from a stranger in a quiet corner of a government building. The man wore a plain suit, no tie, and a badge that simply read, Bureau Liaison, Cybercrimes. He introduced himself only as Agent Rains. Lisa sat beside her, unusually quiet, arms folded, eyes narrowed. Rains began without preamble. "We've accessed the servers linked to the Echo Project. Thanks to the credentials Greg stored, we cracked 2 nodes before the encryption changed." Elise leaned forward. "What did you find?" "Contracts, logs, videos, live feed access portals, targets listed under coded tags. Each one was linked to a client. Some were corporate, some personal, some unknown." Lisa added, "They were selling real-time access to people's lives, for blackmail, for leverage, for entertainment." Elise's stomach turned. "And you're telling me Greg bought into this?" "He may have been a client initially," Rains said, "but the data shows he stopped making payments after 3 months. Then quietly, he began copying files, downloading what he could. Someone noticed. That's when Glass became more active." Lisa passed Elise another file. Inside were printed messages, dark web correspondence recovered from one of the hacked servers. Elise read them slowly. Client GM flagged. Security compromised. Cleanup ordered. Initiate Watcher protocol. Target has asset with emotional leverage. Code E. She looked up. "That's me." Lisa nodded. And Ava was the leverage. They used her to control what Greg did next. When he tried to back out, they sent Glass to keep things quiet. Elise's hand trembled on the edge of the paper. So Ava was never random. She was bait. Lisa said quietly, she was the one thing they knew he'd do anything to protect. Elise swallowed hard. "What happens now?" Rains leaned forward. "We want your help." Elise blinked. "What?" "You know how they operate. You've seen what they do. People like you, survivors, make the best advocates. With your cooperation, we could unmask more clients. Shut down the remaining nodes. Expose the system from the inside." Elise stared at him. "You want me to go public?" "Eventually. But first we need you to act as bait. Again." Lisa cut in. "Absolutely not. She's done more than enough." But Elise held up a hand. "No," she said, "I'll do it." Lisa turned to her. "Elise, I have a daughter, and she's going to grow up in a world that knows what people like this do. That fights them. That doesn't let them hide in shadows." She turned back to Rains. "What do you need from me?" The next 48 hours moved like a blur. Elise was relocated again, this time to a controlled staging unit set up with surveillance tech. Her digital presence was carefully re-established through dummy accounts, controlled leaks, and coded messages designed to ping keywords on Echo's remaining servers. They were fishing now, waiting for someone, anyone, to take the bait. And someone did. On the 3rd day, just after midnight, a message appeared in one of the honeypot inboxes. She should have stayed silent. "We don't end because you survived. We multiply." Attached was a photo, this time not of Ava, but of Lisa, standing outside a grocery store, talking to another agent. completely unaware she'd been seen. Elise stood frozen in the staging room. "He's not alone," she whispered. "There's more of them, still watching." Lisa's phone buzzed. She read the message and nodded grimly. It's time to go to war. Chapter 14. The War Room, the FBI's temporary command center, was nothing like Elise expected. No giant screens or flashing lights, just 4 agents hunched over laptops, the quiet hum of fans, and a corkboard plastered with photos, code names, and connection strings like a spiderweb built from secrets. Elise sat near the edge of the room, a fresh cup of untouched coffee in her hands. Lisa stood by the board, pointing at a name Elise hadn't seen before. User ID, Thornmask. "He sent the threat last night," Lisa explained to the team. "Same writing pattern as a confirmed Echo handler in Arizona. That unit went cold after Glass's arrest. We believe this is a splinter faction, more aggressive, possibly under new leadership." Agent Rains added, "And the fact that he targeted Lisa proves we've got his attention." Elise spoke up. "Why her?" Lisa looked over. "Because I'm your protector, your handler. Take me out of the picture, and they think you're vulnerable again." "But I'm not," Elise said, louder this time. "I'm not scared of them anymore." Rains looked at her carefully. "Good, because we're going to give them a reason to show themselves." He turned the corkboard around to reveal a digital map, red dots scattered across the country. Each dot is a confirmed or suspected Echo node. We've shut down 4. 9 remain dark, but 1 just pinged in real time. He clicked on the screen. A small town in northern Pennsylvania lit up. Someone there just accessed the user account tied to Thornmask through a secured relay, but the signal's weak. We've got a small window to intercept before it reroutes. Lisa straightened. "We move tonight." By midnight, Elise found herself in another unmarked vehicle, this time pulling up to a weather-beaten farmhouse nestled between rows of brittle trees. The town was so quiet, it might as well have been asleep forever. A tactical team surrounded the house with silent precision. Inside, dim lights flickered. "Signals holding," Rains whispered into the earpiece. "We've confirmed at least 2 individuals. 1 in the upstairs room, another near the back exit. Authorization green." Lisa looked at Elise. "You stay in the vehicle. No exceptions." Elise nodded, her jaw clenched. She watched from the passenger seat as the team moved in, silent as phantoms, their steps crisp, practiced. In less than 30 seconds, the front door burst open. A shout, a scuffle, a crash, then silence. Lisa's voice crackled in Elise's earpiece. "House secure." Moments later, Lisa emerged, holding a small silver case. She opened it on the hood of the car, revealing a laptop rigged with antennas and drives. Dozens of usernames, passwords, access logs, and folders labeled with victims' names. Elise's eyes widened. "That's it," Lisa said. "Their backup network." Rains stepped out of the house next. "We have 2 suspects. Neither are Glass loyalists. They claim they were paid to keep data alive and move servers. No idea who's really running it now." "Then we follow the money," Lisa said. "We keep cutting off their limbs until they can't grow back." Elise stared down at the laptop, at all the names, the lives. "Can I see mine?" she asked. Rains hesitated, then nodded and typed in her code. Her folder opened. Inside, photos, emails, phone calls, audio recordings from her own home. Ava's school notes, Elise's therapy files, even her hospital visit after a panic attack 5 years ago. Her whole life, catalogued like an exhibit. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Instead, she said, "Burn it." Lisa nodded. The laptop was removed and passed to a digital forensics van, where a clean wipe would follow. But as they closed the case, Rains's phone buzzed again. He glanced at it and frowned. "What is it?" Lisa asked. Another photo. Grainy, pixelated, a shot of Elise's mother standing on the front porch of her retirement home. "You think this ends with fire?" "We are everywhere, and we remember everything." Chapter 15. Nowhere left to hide, Elise stared at the photo on Agent Rains's phone, her mother smiling on the porch, completely unaware she was being watched. Again. "No one even knew where she lives," Elise whispered. Lisa didn't answer. She was already moving, dialing commands into her radio, directing local law enforcement to the residential care center. We'll have a protective unit on her in 10 minutes. But Elise's voice cracked through the panic. If they found her, they can find anyone. Rains tapped at his tablet. They're inside the original servers again. This wasn't a bluff, it's a response. Thornmask is in control of what's left of Echo. Glass was just one head of the Hydra. Elise looked at him. Then how do we cut off the rest? He hesitated. That's the problem. Thornmask isn't just operating within the network, he's evolving it. Faster encryption, scrambled user flows, non-traditional ID markers. This isn't just a group of rogue watchers anymore. It's becoming something bigger and more dangerous. Lisa turned. Then we hit back harder. Elise, you said you were ready to take this public. Are you still? Elise's stomach tightened. Yes, but how? Lisa handed her a tablet. We want you to tell your story. Controlled, strategic. We'll publish it anonymously at first, then release your name after we've secured your mother, your daughter, and every point of vulnerability they've exploited. We'll use the post to draw Thornmask into the open. Rains added, You're not just bait anymore, you're a witness, the first one to survive and fight back. Elise nodded slowly, then she began to type. The post. My name is Elise Moore. I was watched, stalked, targeted. My husband is dead. My daughter was nearly taken. I survived because I refused to stay silent. The people who did this to me are part of a network. They hide behind usernames. They call themselves Echo. But I've learned one thing. Shadows only win when we stay in the dark. So here I am. I see you now. And I'm not afraid anymore. They launched the post on 5 major platforms, cloaked by burner accounts and mirrored in privacy-focused forums. It went viral within hours. Comments flooded in. Thousands of messages, some offering support, some terrified, and others revealing. Anonymous accounts replied with phrases only someone inside Echo would know. Code 912 matches. Subject E-flagged since 2021. Echo never sleeps. But one comment stood out. A simple message. No username, no location, just a cryptic timestamp. 3:13 a.m. basement. Elise's blood ran cold. That was the exact time Ava had woken up screaming the night of Greg's disappearance. She turned to Lisa. What basement? Lisa's eyes narrowed. That's what we're going to find out. The tech team began filtering through every data point they'd collected from Echo's activity. After 2 hours of cross-referencing locations, timestamps, and backlogged server logs, they found it. A storage facility rented under one of Greg's shell companies. Unused since the week he died. Located just 15 minutes from where Elise and Ava had lived. Unit 9B. They arrived before dawn. The facility was silent, deserted. Inside the dim corridor, they found Unit 9B. Lisa picked the lock. The door creaked open. Inside were rows of monitors, all turned off now, but wires still warm. A chair sat in the center, facing screens that once streamed Elise's life in real time. And taped to one of the monitors, a photo of Ava. Underneath it, a note. You found the basement. Good. But I've already moved upstairs. Chapter 16. The upstairs game. Elise stared at the note, the words branded into her vision like a fresh wound. I've already moved upstairs. What does it mean? She whispered, her voice barely holding. Lisa scanned the rest of the room, her gun drawn, checking corners, vents, and the exposed wiring. It's metaphor. He's taunting us. Rains stood by the rack of now-dead monitors. Or it's literal. We assumed the basement was the end of the trail, but maybe this wasn't the hub. Lisa looked at Elise. Did Greg have a second office? A loft space? Somewhere no one would think to check. Elise hesitated. He rented a floor at the old warehouse district last year. Said it was for inventory. I never went. Lisa's eyes locked with Rains's. That's our upstairs. The warehouse stood like a forgotten sentinel on the edge of the industrial zone. Red brick, cracked windows, rusted signage. It had once been a shipping hub for textiles. Now it sat in ruin, abandoned, or so they thought. Unit 4C. Elise had passed it dozens of times. She never imagined it watched her back. They approached just after 8 p.m., the sun setting behind a haze of clouds. Rains's team moved in first. Thermal scans, drone passes, fiber taps. Nothing. No signals, no heat. Dead. But they moved anyway. When Lisa pushed the door to 4C open, the first thing they saw was light. Soft, warm light. A desk lamp glowed in the center of the room, beside it a chessboard. And on the far wall, photos, dozens, of Elise, Avenue Lisa, her mother. But this time there were no pins, no strings, just black marker slashes through each picture. One word was written in jagged capital letters across the middle of the wall: checkmate. Lisa scanned the room. He was just here. Rains found it first, a flash drive hidden beneath the queen on the chessboard. He plugged it into a secure tablet, files loaded instantly. Audio. The first clip began to play. Every story has a climax. You want to catch me. But you can't catch a ghost. You turned on the lights, Elise. But I was never hiding in the dark. Then the second clip. The game is upstairs now, not in rooms or wires, but in heads, in fears, in cameras, in silence. The third clip was shorter, chilling. Ava's voice. Mommy, is the man with the eyes still watching us? Elise's hand flew to her mouth. That wasn't her, she said quickly. That's not her now. That's a recording. From before. Lisa confirmed. He recorded your daughter's voice and used it for psychological triggers. We've seen it in other stalker profiles. It's meant to destabilize you. Elise exhaled shakily. It's working. But then something caught her eye, another chess piece on the floor. The king, knocked over, taped beneath it, a note. Last move is yours. They left the warehouse in silence. The drive back was tense, each agent lost in thought. Lisa broke the silence first. He's not done. He's playing the long game. He's already planning the next cycle. No, Elise said firmly. He wants me to think he's untouchable. He's counting on me breaking. She looked out the window, but I'm still standing. Lisa glanced at her. So what do you want to do? Elise's eyes narrowed. Finish it. That night, Elise went live. No aliases, no masks, just her face and voice. On a live stream viewed by over 400,000 people, she told her story. From Greg's betrayal to the basement to the chessboard. And then she said, I know you're watching. You always are. So here's my final move. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. You don't own my fear. You don't get to live in my head anymore. I'm not your pawn. I'm the one flipping the board. In a room across the city, a figure watched from behind a flickering monitor. He leaned back, slow, thoughtful. Then, for the first time, he closed the laptop and smiled. Chapter 17. The Queen's Gambit. It had been 3 days since Elise's livestream. 3 days since she dared to speak his name into the light. 3 days of silence. No new messages, no threats, no sightings, nothing from Thornmask. The world had moved on, or so it seemed. But Elise knew better. Lisa stayed close, checking in daily, while Rains's task force continued to dissect the data recovered from the warehouse. Every hour they peeled back another layer of what Glass had built and Thornmask had inherited. But no one knew where the next move would come from. Until the envelope arrived. It was hand-delivered to the Federal Field Office. No postage, no return address. Just Elise's name, written in thick, dark ink. Inside was a single item, a queen chess piece, and beneath it a handwritten note, You played well. But even queens bleed. Lisa stood beside Elise as she read it. Her face hardened. He's watching again. No, Elise whispered, looking at the piece in her palm. He's warning me. Or testing me. Same thing. Lisa handed it off to forensics, and Elise walked away, her mind churning. She returned home later that evening. Not to the house she once shared with Greg, but to the secured apartment the Bureau had helped furnish. Sparse, but safe. Ava was there, asleep on the couch, a cartoon paused on the screen. Elise brushed a hand over her daughter's hair and kissed her forehead. I won't let them near you again, she whispered. Then she sat at the kitchen table and opened her laptop. There was one file she hadn't opened yet, a folder Greg had labeled Confession. Inside, a single video. She pressed play. Greg appeared on screen, looking older than she remembered, tired, unshaven. He sat in his office, face lit only by a desk lamp. "If you're seeing this, I'm gone." Elise leaned forward, every part of her frozen. "I made a mistake. No, not a mistake. A choice. I chose to control you, to control the narrative. I told myself it was to protect Ava. But the truth is, I was scared of you leaving, of losing everything." He swallowed hard. "But what I hired Glass to do, that was unforgivable. And I knew the moment I tried to stop it, I'd be marked." He looked into the camera. "I tried to expose them. I copied everything. And if you're seeing this, Elise, it's yours now. I'm sorry, I loved you. But I was a coward." The video ended. Elise sat still for a long time. Then she copied the entire folder onto a new flash drive. Not for the FBI, for the world. The next morning, an international journalist posted a story titled, "The Echo Project, Inside the Secret Network of Digital Predators." At the top of the article, a quote, "Even queens bleed, but only the brave ones fight back. Elise Moore." The backlash was immediate. Senators called hearings. Tech companies denied involvement. Survivors reached out from all over the world. Women, men, families. The illusion of safety had been shattered, and with it, the silence. Thornmask posted once, just once, a grainy image of a burned chessboard. No words. Then, he disappeared. Lisa visited Elise a week later, carrying a new folder. "No movement on his accounts," she said. "But we know he's out there. And if he resurfaces—" "I'll be ready," Elise said. Lisa hesitated. "You know this isn't really over." Elise nodded, her eyes drifting to Ava, who was playing in the next room. "I know," she whispered, "but neither am I." Chapter 18. Voices that don't fade. Autumn settled slowly over the city, mornings crisp, nights quiet, and amber leaves falling like whispered truths. For the first time in weeks, Elise felt herself breathing differently. Not without fear, but with space around the fear. Room for something else. Resilience. Ava had returned to school under an assumed name and with a discreet shadow agent always nearby. She didn't understand everything that had happened, but she knew the danger had passed. Mostly. Elise stood outside the school gates, watching through the glass as Ava laughed with a girl from her new class. That laugh, the soft, unfiltered kind, was more valuable to her than anything she'd lost. Lisa joined her on the sidewalk a moment later. "She's adjusting well," she said. "She's stronger than I was at her age," Elise replied. "Maybe stronger than I am now." Lisa gave her a look. "Don't say that. You've gone through hell, and you didn't just survive. You turned around and lit the way for others." Elise looked down at her hands. "Then why do I still feel like someone's watching?" Lisa nodded slowly. "Because someone probably is." Elise blinked. Lisa continued. "Not him, not Echo. They've gone dark. But you're public now, high profile. You've exposed one of the most disturbing modern crimes of our generation. People are going to watch. You're saying it'll never end?" Lisa shook her head. "I'm saying the story has changed. You're not a victim anymore, Elise. You're a voice." Elise looked back at Ava. "And what happens when another Echo shows up? A new predator with a new name?" "Then we fight again," Lisa said simply. "Only this time we won't be caught off guard. Because we know the rules. We've seen the pattern. And we've learned to listen for the silence." Later that night, Elise stood by the open window of her apartment. The city was still. Lights blinked in tall buildings. Distant laughter echoed from a passing car. Her inbox had flooded that day. Survivors reaching out, journalists, advocacy groups, even lawmakers. People asking her to speak, to testify, to become something more than what was done to her. She opened a blank document. At the top she typed, "The Silent Witness, Part 2, for everyone who thought they were alone." She paused, staring at the words. Then she began to write, not for vengeance, not for closure, but for all the women and men still living in the shadow of someone else's control. for those who hadn't yet found their voice. Because Elise Moore had once been silent, but now she was the echo in the dark, and this time she was the one watching. Chapter 19. Unmasked, 6 months later, Elise sat in the front row of a congressional hearing room, the seal of the Department of Justice gleaming from the raised wall behind the dais. The room was packed, journalists, legal aides, and survivors from around the country, all drawn together by one thing: the pursuit of accountability. The chairwoman cleared her throat and looked down from her platform. "Elise Moore, thank you for being here. You may begin." Elise stood, walked to the microphone and placed a folded paper in front of her. She didn't read it. Instead, she looked the senators in the eye. "My name is Elise Moore. I was watched, manipulated, hunted. My husband died trying to fix a mistake he made, hiring a man who turned out to be much worse than he realized." She paused. "But this isn't just about my story. I'm here because the system that let people like Thomas Whitmore, Harlan Glass, and Thorne Mask exist still has cracks in it. Technology can protect, but it can also destroy. And right now, too many people are using it to make others disappear in plain sight." A hush filled the room. "I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm asking for protection, regulation, tools, funding. People are being watched. Right now, some don't even know it. Some can't fight back, but you can." She stepped back. Applause erupted. Not wild, but steady, earnest, defiant. Lisa, seated behind her, gave the smallest nod. After the hearing, Elise was ushered into a side room where an agent handed her a sealed file marked confidential. "This just came in from Interpol," the agent said quietly. "We thought you'd want to see it first." Elise opened it slowly. Inside, a blurry security camera still. A man boarding a flight in Budapest. Tall, hooded, gloved, but this time no mask. His face was partially turned toward the lens. Ragged features, sunken eyes, but unmistakable. "Thorne Mask," and scribbled across the back of the printed photo in the same scrawl from before: "You started the fire. Let's see who burns last." Elise closed the folder, then looked up. "We find him," she said. "We finish this." That night, Elise sat on her balcony, Ava asleep inside, the wind rustling the wind chimes. Her phone buzzed with a message from Lisa. "We traced the IP. Berlin, stay ready." She looked out at the dark horizon. She had once been hunted. Now she was the hunter. And the next time she faced him, whoever he really was, she wouldn't just bring her fear. She'd bring every voice he tried to silence. Chapter 20. The Last Move. Berlin, a city draped in history, cobblestone shadows, and modern surveillance. It was both ancient and advanced, an echo of worlds built on secrecy. Elise stood in front of a nondescript grey building just off Kreuzberg, bundled in a coat against the early spring chill. Lisa was beside her, wearing a slim comms device, her eyes scanning every passerby. "He's inside," Lisa said quietly. "Top floor. We've confirmed it's him. No more aliases, no more masks. Real name: Dorian Hartmann, ex-cybersecurity engineer. He helped design parts of Echo's original infrastructure." Elise nodded slowly. "You think he knows we're here?" "I think he's been expecting you." Rains's voice came through the comm. "Teams in position. Give the word." But Elise raised her hand. "Wait." Lisa turned. "What are you doing?" "I need to face him," Elise said. "He started this by watching me. Let him see what I've become." Before Lisa could argue, Elise was already walking toward the building entrance. The apartment was sparse, bare walls, one desk, two laptops, and a single man standing by the window, back turned, watching the street below. He didn't move when Elise stepped inside. "You're early," he said. His voice was smooth, even, familiar in the way nightmares are. Elise didn't flinch. "You ran." He turned then, older than she expected, gaunt, pale. But the eyes, those hollow predator's eyes, were unmistakable. "I evolved," he said. "They always think catching the monster means the story ends. But you," he smiled faintly, "you knew better." Elise stepped closer, just enough. "You didn't win." "I didn't lose either." I became the question mark they can't erase. You became irrelevant. He laughed once. You really think this ends with me? No, Elise said, but it starts ending with you. Behind her, the door opened. Lisa entered with two agents in full tactical gear. Dorian didn't resist. He didn't speak again. He simply raised his hands, smiling like the story was already writing its next twist. But Elise wasn't afraid. Not anymore. 6 months later, Elise's book, The Silent Witness, debuted at #1. Her TED Talk was streamed over 8 million times. A new non-profit was launched in her name, Project Echo Break, to protect, educate, and empower survivors of digital abuse. Legislation passed in 4 countries within the year, modeled after the evidence she had helped bring forward. And Thorn Mask, Dorian Hartman, was now behind bars, permanently. Epilogue. Elise sat with Ava beneath a wide tree in a quiet park. The girl was sketching in a notebook. Bright colors, gentle shapes. "Mommy," she asked suddenly. "Yes, love? Are the bad men all gone?" Elise paused, then said softly, "Some are. Some never leave. But we're not afraid of them anymore." Ava nodded, then added a final detail to her drawing, a stick figure with a cape and a crown. "Is that me?" Elise asked, smiling. "No," Ava said, "that's you. You're the one who stopped the Watchers." Elise looked at the sky, open, endless, and clear, and for the first time in a long, long time, she believed it.